everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar. I'm your host as always, and joining me this week are two of the learned gentlemen of Heart and Hand. First of all, the Professor of Soonest Studies, knowledge of all things historical, Mr. Ian Hogg.
Learned. Yes, good afternoon, David. Thank you for having me on, and good afternoon, everyone.
And also joining us, a man who can bring a little bit of more up-to-date knowledge, low blocks, defensive walls, expected Gs, all of that shite. It's Adam Thornton.
David, hello. If you'd have been in my house at half-time on Saturday, that was the furthest thing from my mind, but I'll try my best to bring it back around tonight.
Yeah, can I just say, folks, that certainly chatting away to Adam on Saturday afternoon, what I most liked about you, Adam, was I think a feeling that we've all had in the past, right? Because what Adam was in can only be described as an aggressive huff that Rangers were losing. And it's one of those, after St Mirren and then going 1-0 down to Motherwell, it's not why aren't they playing well or why aren't they doing this? It's why are you doing this to me, Rangers? You take it personally, don't you?
Oh, I was in a dark place. So much so that even by the end, in fact, even today, I'm still not 100% recovered from it. I think it's hanging about with Martin too much. He just eventually just grinds you down and brings you down to his level of misery.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, he got married this week, so you know,
it was nearly jinxed.
Yes, it was, because Martin got married on the Tuesday. Folks, Rangers, of course, lost to St Mirren on the Wednesday, and his new wife pointed out that walking about in a bad mood because you've lost a football match just 24 hours after your wedding day is not good. But as Martin pointed out, hello, my name is Martin Ramsey. You appear not to have met me. Weddings come and go. Rangers are forever. But look, going into this game, Ian, Rangers will drop points this season. And I will moan about it when it happens. Right? Cards on the table. Not going to sit here and say I'll be sanguine about it. It's one of those hypothetical things that you can be okay with in theory. But we all know the truth. When Rangers drop points, I will be bloody livid. But logically, in my brain, I know that it will happen. However, it could not happen. For a multitude of reasons that we are about to get into, it could not happen on Saturday.
No, it couldn't. It was outside of the first 20 minutes or so last Wednesday night. It was poor. We switched off. We couldn't switch it back on. We lost the game. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and sent us all into a wee tailspin. I think Huff underplays it. Strop is probably the best description, and it gave us all, I think, collective fear. David, going into Saturday, that we heard all the stuff about the 4 times previous that Steven Gerrard's Rangers have gone out a cup. They've played at home and they've not won. So there was felt like an entire jungle of monkeys on our back on Saturday morning. Going into the game, I think, if I'm being honest, Gerrard picked probably the team that most of us would have picked. Poor performers weren't in, regulars were. And we simply, I think, from a confidence, from monkeys off the back, from just that fear not spiralling into something that's out of control. You're right, we absolutely had to win, and you know what, for 45 minutes to an hour, it looked as if that was the furthest thing from happening.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, start with that. The team selection at the weekend, it was, back to full strength. I think it's not controversial to say I think the manager over-rotated against St Mirren, and it bit us in the arse a big bit. And it was back to what, given who's available at the moment, I would have considered the first team. But I know that you are not quite as set on that midfield as maybe others have been.
And it's the same as last season, I guess, with the Jack Davis-Kamara thing. We got our best results with that. Is it necessarily the best midfield to approach every single game? I think we've seen very quickly the answer was no. Kamara, Davis, Arfield is a lot more, has a lot more to it. It can attack and it can defend. It is the best balanced midfield I think we've got, is the way that I would describe it. And I think on form this season, you would say it's the best midfield. But it's useful in certain games. Celtic away, Hibs away, all the home Europa games, and others, to be fair, most away games where it's going to be a little bit tighter. I think you get the picture. That's where we might not dominate the ball as much as we would in other games. We all still dominate the ball, but not to the ridiculous points of 75-80% possession. They've tended to play those type of games. In the other games, we've mixed it up slightly with mostly Joe Aribo and Jack coming in to partner our field. We're talking Hamilton at home, Aberdeen at home. Games where we'll have loads of the ball and expect to dominate. We get more attackers in the team, and results and performances have been really positive. Gerrard's had a lot of praise for that. So there's a wee bit of logic there. Basically, Kamara and Davis in tighter games, Aribo and Jack in possession-heavy ones with Arfield playing both. I don't think anybody would argue up until the last two games where he's been a little poor. Against St Mirren, I agree with what you're saying and what the general mood is, but I can't be hypocritical because I was happy with the team before the game. The only thing for me would have been Bassey for Barisic, but I wasn't that offended by it, that it was something that I thought was ridiculous. When you sit down and you think about it logically, Barisic should play because it's a cup game and it was really, really important to us, but Bassey hasn't let anybody down. Other than that, I was fine with it, outside of the forced absentees, which was really just Jack and Morelos, I guess. So we can't do anything about those. So there was only really one for me, to be honest, and it kind of played to that logic. It's going to be possession heavy. We want to get those guys in there. We want to win it. However, given it's a cup game, maybe Kamara, Davis, Arfield would have been better there. Other than that, I can't be too critical at all. Against St Mirren, I think we stuck to this, really. I think Zungu played the Jack role. Haribo and Arfield started in front of him. It stands to reason, as I said previously, that I think the problem there was poor performances rather than tactical instruction. And if we're being honest, the way that St Mirren played the game, I think they were very, very good at what they did, which we don't always think of, David. When we're looking at our teams, we don't think of how good the other team is playing. If they're having a really good game, we just think about Rangers, which is what we do. That's fine. In the game on Wednesday night, I thought Davis coming on for Arfield was a little weird. Not the player coming on and the player going off, but the types were 2-1 down. Maybe we wanted to control possession a little more, but it's a bit of a weird sub when we're chasing the game, really. You then have Zungu and Davis sitting deeper and giving us less support for Defoe, where what we needed was more. Maybe Hadji could have been an option there in the same way that he then proved to be against Motherwell. I don't know. I also don't understand you're chasing a goal when you take Defoe off, you take it in off and bring on Defoe, have both of them on, you're chasing a goal. You want Defoe on to grab a goal, but you want somebody to support him. I think that's basic stuff. I get the shape and all that sort of stuff, but there was ways around that. It could have had both of them on, I think, and who knows what might have happened. Then against Motherwell, we started with that big game midfield, which again I did think was a little weird, but I guess after the defeat midweek, he maybe wanted to play his trusted players, even if they weren't as suited to the challenges. Maybe more attacking players might be in theory. I don't know. I think we can say it didn't work in the first half. It wasn't the midfield's fault in total, but with two more possession-heavy centre mids compared with Aribo or Hadji, who are better with risky passing and maybe forward running, etc. It sort of feels like how it would pan out, especially when you think how Motherwell approached the game. I have to caveat that again, David, with I didn't have a major concern with the lineup pre-game, but that was based on what we've seen from Motherwell in the away game. I don't think anybody expected them to come and play that 5-5-0. So when the game started and then they got their goal, I think very quickly it might have became obvious we probably want to sacrifice one of these. The commentary team were talking about sacrificing a centre half from early on late on in the first half. I think it was sacrificing a centre half. For me, I think the switch at half time was the right one with bringing Aribo on for Kamara. I think that helped us get ourselves back into the game. So yeah, the midfield three, there's a lot to unpack there. That was a bit of a rant, but I think I can see the manager's point. It just feels like there's maybe 2 points. There's a point in the St Mirren game where he maybe changed it up and it maybe didn't help us, and then there's a point in this game where he changed it up and it did help us.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think the game on Saturday, one of the things, as people might know, I'm very privileged. I get to go and report from the games at Ibrox, and Stephen Davis's contribution was enormous. Now that might seem a little bit strange, because obviously, you look at what happened with the actual goals, but Davis was the real driving force. He kept getting the ball and then bringing it forward and giving it to Hagi, Aribo, etc. The attacking players to start, or to Tavernier, to Borna Barisic. He kept that going just constantly, but also he was talking everybody through it. You go there, you stay there, you switch with him. And it really was a sort of on-field captain's display from Stephen Davis. He was really important, and it was maybe more noticeable being there and being able to hear, obviously, the shouts that Davis played a monumental part in that second half comeback. Ian, the fullbacks have had a lot of praise. They've deserved it this season. They've been magnificent, absolutely magnificent. James Tavernier has been skyscrapingly good. The first goal at the weekend, though, was their fault. Borna Barisic turns his back on a cross gets across, Tav's nowhere at the back post, Motherwell player sticks it in. If he hadn't, there was another Motherwell player there to do so. We know in modern football that fullbacks are a bit attacking. We know that, we get that, especially the style of football we play, but you still have to do the basics.
Well, defenders, here's a point where, Adam, close your ears. Defenders actually do have to defend. I get that modern fullbacks are by and large wingers in old money, but our defenders can defend, and Barisic and Tav can defend. And the first goal is just basic. It really is. It's not as if they've broken away either. They haven't broken away, and therefore we've got our two fullbacks high up the park.
It comes from a throw-in. We should be set, yeah.
So they should be set. They win the ball in the 80-yard line. It's played out, and then it's just, I think O'Donnell just drills it across, basically the 6-yard box. Barisic seems to have an aversion to actually cutting out crosses. Borna, you need to start doing that. That's kind of your job. Back post, it misses out the two central defenders. Tav isn't there. It's an easy tap in, and David, from that point on, because I did the post match. And I'd noted down, first 5 minutes, we were actually quite at it, and Defoe had a snapshot and a chance. Then they score that most basic of goals. And for the rest of the first half, I genuinely thought that I'd gone to sleep on Tuesday and woken up in February, because what happened on Wednesday night happened. And then the first half, we just moved away from quick, incisive passing and trying to play it into the channels and trying to, play through teams rather than actually what we had. It was slow side-to-side passing, get it out to either Tav or Borna Barisic and whip in across for, Jermaine Defoe against three giants, effectively. If we didn't do that, Ryan Kent was getting the ball. He played poorly, I thought, but he certainly never hid. The issue I had with Ryan Kent in the first half was he always cut inside, and especially, as Adam says, after they scored, they then camped in a 5-5-0 formation. I'm not entirely sure I've seen anything like it before in my life, David, but if you're playing against 5-5-0 and cutting inside, the odds are you're running into traffic. So, it really, really felt like a February 2020 performance. I must admit, at half time, I was wondering where the hell a goal was coming from, and genuinely didn't think we'd get it.
David, see, just on that fullback point, I completely agree with what you both said, but there's a tactical piece of that as well, which is important. That's the fourth time so far this season that we've conceded that goal, essentially. We've had it, obviously the Motherwell game, we've had it in Dundee United, and then there was two against Standard Liège that were pretty similar, ball from the left or ball from one side all the way over to the back post. It's a weakness, but we allow it to be a weakness, and if that makes sense. It's a known flaw, I guess. There's obviously no perfect tactical system, but it's like the Death Star. There's a flaw there, but it's the way that we play that allows that. There's always a gap anywhere in any team, and ours is generally in behind the fullbacks because of how they play. In big games, we actively funnel teams wide and one-on-one with their fullbacks rather than giving them space in the middle, because you are in theory less likely to score from being wide on the touchline than you are right in front of the defence. So it kind of makes sense. The most obvious example of that, I think, was Braga away, where we deliberately let them overload Barisic on the left. Like, ridiculously so. Every time they had the ball, there was clearly two of them with no space, with hundreds of space, and Barisic on his own. But it was a tactic. The midfield could then remain compact, and we can kind of control the middle. What you then need, and Hoggy alluded to, is there's 2 points of failure, and they are 2 big points of failure. Barisic or Bassi, whoever it is, needs to stop the ball before it comes in. If he doesn't do it, then Tav needs to win at the back post. He needs to know that there's a chance that ball is going to come in. Quite a high chance, given the way that the tactical system is set up. So you need to make sure you know where your man was. On Saturday, he was nowhere near. Give him the benefit of the doubt in the Standard Liège games. But on Saturday, he was nowhere near the man at all. That's the 2 points of failure. Stop the cross. If you can't stop the cross, you need to have your man in those rare situations. So I think it is how we play, and it's not just the attack, therefore they're going to be caught out. That's the way that we have set up the team, and it's these 2 points of failure. But you still need to do your basic role of defending, which is block the cross and keep your man at the cross.
And I think that's key. Adam, I genuinely think that's key. That word that you've just said, it's basics. And we didn't do it.
No, we didn't, and it cost us. And you're right, then there was a flatness and a sluggishness, because we all knew, we'd lost big game on Wednesday, and the stat, which wasn't so much a stat as just, it was true, it was a fact, which was Rangers hadn't won after going out of the Cup, and we dropped points in the league games after Cup exits under Steven Gerrard. Half time comes, and I think that the second half was, watching it back, what I wanted it to be, which was we were camped in there. Motherwell were playing this 5-5. And look, it's their right to play that, and especially when they get an early goal. You cannot criticise a side for doing that. Would I want to watch it? No. Is there a reason the league can't get a sponsor? It's atrocious. They were so deep. I pissed myself laughing watching the replay of the Cedric Etienne goal when they've got their hand up for offside. How can you be offside? You've had 5 guys camped on the goal line. It isn't possible. But Rangers were, making chances. Stephen Davis with and watching it back with the knowledge of how it went, it did seem like it was coming, but it didn't at the time. To be totally honest, and that's scarring. That's previous seasons, previous matches, unfortunately, and it's there. We can't pretend it's not. But watching it back, you did sense that God, we're putting Motherwell under pressure. I did think if we get one, we'll go on and win it. But there was a point around about the 65th minute where I thought, we're not getting the one. We could play all day here and we're not scoring. And then, thankfully, a mistake from Motherwell. And let's not kid ourselves, that boy McGabby's not much of a footballer. Put him under pressure and eventually he broke. And there was Kamar Roof to finish expertly. Couple of minutes later, Cedric Etienne at the back post. Beautiful bit of movement, Adam, I thought. Just wanders in there thinking the ball might pop up here. He said after the game he thought, there's a wee bit of space. I loved that. That's a striker.
That's instinct, yeah, absolutely. I think what you've said there is spot on, to be honest. There's just such a fine line where the result just completely changes your perception, I think. And that was maybe something that I, as I said, had a bit of a huff from half-time to about 60 minutes. So much so that I probably couldn't get myself out of that funk even after we had went ahead, and it clouds your perception. Ian was right. Mood music of the Wednesday night and back to the bad old days, I think, affected quite a lot of us. I tried to think what the stadium would have been like with fans in. To be honest, I thought, same as you, David, we were loads better in the second half, but crucially, maybe not anywhere near as good as we've been recently. I think that's important to gauge. As you've said, I would agree, it's possibly slight revisionism to say we were very patient and stuck to our game plan and were eventually rewarded. It really didn't feel like that watching it, or even the next day. I can appreciate that we were good in that second half, or the second half of the second half, if you like, but it didn't feel like we were excellent. It felt like we managed to grind them down, and like you said, it was a mistake that got us back into the game, but it's crucial. Having Roof and having it in there in that 6-yard box, both of them came alive for those goals, which I thought was fabulous, and it won us the game.
And then Cedric Etienne doing what he did at Ross County, and it's something the manager's spoken about. He's a pest. He's a nuisance. Defenders hate him, and there he is buzzing about in the last minute after an expert piece of clock runny downy by him and Yanis Hadji, where 4 minutes comes up on the board. that I'm not going to lie, my Long Johns were on the verge of being lined at that point, but they just expertly went over and killed that. And then Motherwell player dawdling the ball, gets robbed by Cedric, and there's Kamar Roof, another lovely finish, and boom, 3-1. What were we worried about? Ian, this was enormous. And also credit, by the way, Motherwell wasted time from the opening minute, and then as soon as we took the lead, Alan McGregor's cramp. One of the funniest things I have ever seen at a football match. Top shite hawkery. There's maybe something to be said, incidentally, and I'm not sure how you would do it, but when a team like Motherwell waste time throughout the whole game and then get the benefit of that time added on at the end when they're losing, one of those things that it's probably no way to stop it, but it does seem a bit unfair.
Yeah, just on Alan McGregor, I genuinely had bawling out laughing when if he's got his stepometer on, or whatever you call those things, he probably went about 200 steps during the game. It's not as if he's gone 10 kilometres. Oh Christ, I've got a bit of cramp. It's phenomenal, to the point the refs trying to stretch out for him. And then we do. The side got a bit of criticism on Wednesday night around game management. We made it 2 each, and then adrenaline took over, David, and we, were wrestling the ball and all the rest of it, and then we're all over the place for St Mirren to score the winner. We got it bang on, absolutely bang on Saturday.
Interestingly, on that, and I know people picked up on this from the TV pictures. See, when we scored and we're celebrating, the manager leapt up and did a big celebration. I mean, it was probably the biggest celebration I've done since I've been, allowed into the press area. And don't worry about it, folks. I know to behave away from home. It's just polite. But I did ask about Ibrox. I'm like, look, occasionally I might let out a roar, and Rangers will let, well, you're fan media. That's perfectly said. Don't whip your willy out and run up to the directors of the opposition and wave it, but they occasionally going yes is all right, and I will admit that happened when Cedric Eten's goal went in. But immediately after the gaffer leapt up, quick hug with Michael Beale, he then turned around and started bawling at them, get back into position, concentrate. I think that was Wednesday night really coming to the fore.
Yeah, I think so. And, so we had that on Wednesday, but the game management on Saturday was outstanding. We had the right players in the park to do it as well, David. So you go from the ridiculous in Alan McGregor, it's just so funny, down to we actually kept the ball for 3 of those 4 minutes down in the corner at the corner of the Copeland and the Govan. And we kept it there with Joe Aribo, with Cedric Eten, Hadji was in about there, and we just kept on dinking it off their players to get throw-ins and corners. We gave it away once, we won it back, and then we scored the goal. And the goal just comes from persistence and Kamar Roof just being in that right place at the right time again.
Adam, whenever Rangers lose a game, questions of character come up. Bottle, etc. That's the word I saw a lot after Wednesday night. I didn't think it was Bottle on Wednesday night. I thought it was a wee touch of complacency because I think Rangers scored early, great form, thought the job was done, really relaxed a wee bit. As you said, St Mirren, who are a limited side, and I don't mean that critically, they beat us fair and square and they deserve to beat us that night, so that's not me in any way denigrating them, but I'm sure they would admit themselves they need to work hard to overcome sides with superior ability, and I think that's what happened. They outbattled us, and then Rangers realised we're in a struggle and couldn't really step up a gear, got the goal, and as Ian said, went to sleep. I don't think it was Bottle. I think it was complacency, but sins of the past came back to haunt them as a side. Character, if you were looking for it, did that happen on Saturday, or is it a case of we overreact to a single defeat and we say, they've got no bottle or they've got no character, whereas in fact it was just they actually just played badly?
I think I'm going to channel Martin Ramsey in here and say these questions go away when you actually win something. So I think until that happens, every setback is going to be faced with oh well, when we'll look back through the stats and we'll say, well, actually in 2018 we won 3 games in a row and then we lost the next 3 because somebody wore this colour of boots. That's the type of things that we'll do. I think the team showed great character to get into the game again on Wednesday night. And then I think there's obviously a very late collapse, which is not acceptable. And then Saturday, I don't know. I think the coaching team on Saturday possibly went a little bit too cautious. We heard Gerrard way back in, was it August, the Livingston game, talking about, I can't remember the exact quote after the game, but it's about need to get more attacking players in, and I think that's the last time that Jack and Kamara played a domestic game together. I might be wrong on that, but I'm fairly sure it is. I need to get more attackers in the team, and to be fair, he's done that, like we said at the start of the show. But I just think with the panic's the wrong word, but with the disappointment of the cup game, I think they went a little bit too cautious in this game, and then a different kind of panic sets in. As Hoggy mentioned, it was like February, January, that first half, even probably similar to ones the year before. We crossed the ball 25 times in that first half to Jermaine Defoe, who is 5 foot.
Declan Gallagher, yeah.
5 foot what, with, as you mentioned, essentially 10 defenders, but certainly 3 huge centre halves. We crossed the ball 25 times in. No surprises, it hit the target twice. So 25 balls in, 2 accurate. We actually made the most crosses that we've had this season in total in the whole game. It was 40 crosses in total. But in the second half, there was 15 crosses, obviously, and then 5 on target. So we changed it up. There's different. That obviously doesn't tell you the type of crosses, etc. I think you can understand the first half. Everybody's seen it. It was Tavan Barisic swinging balls in from anywhere and everywhere they could, and it was never going to happen. Motherwell's game plan was essentially what we said Braga did. We did to Braga. It was squeezes in the middle, cut off the passing lanes, forces wide. Judging by the crossing numbers there obviously helps. We weren't very good at it. Another factor I think that we don't consider with that is when you push us wide, we've only got one wide player on each side. Tavernier is the wide one on the right hand side. The ball's going to him in those areas. He's had such success, David, getting into the penalty area this season, arriving at the back post. If they effectively give him the ball in those deeper areas, he can't ghost into the penalty area like he has been doing, and he was in far less than he's been in all the other games. So that's a bit of a double-edged sword there. It's we're not going to let him get into those dangerous areas, but we're also going to make sure that all he can aim for is Jermaine Defoe. So that contributed to the feeling, certainly for me, was we have run out of ideas here. They've camped the 10 men behind the ball. All we're doing is crossing the ball from the halfway line into Defoe's head. So I'm really pleased that the management team showed a wee bit of bravery, I guess, at half-time. And not necessarily that they weren't brave before that, but showed a wee bit of bravery at half-time, bringing Aribo on, and then some more bravery by bringing Hadji on as well, and essentially playing 5 attackers plus 2 attacking fullbacks. I think that is the type of thing that we wouldn't have done last season. I know we always say we'd have lost that game last season, and I agree we probably would have, because I don't think we'd have done that.
That Adam's pet hate is a phrase. We would have lost that game last season. So for him to admit it shows you, I think. But
I think there's a wee bit of a positive sign in there, is that yes, we probably would have, but what we did this season was we made changes to win the game, whereas last season it would have just been Defoe coming off and it and going on, and Kamara coming on and Jack going on.
It wouldn't have been, and is that a big factor that we turned to the bench at the weekend and we brought on quality like Joe Aribo, Yanis Hadji, Cedric Item, and then Bongani Zungu. I liked that switch because we had 5 attackers on and we immediately took one off and got back into a shape when we took the lead. We haven't had that quality, when we've run out of ideas in inverted commas in the past. Season 1, and this is no disrespect, but we were bringing on guys like Glenn Middleton and Kyle Lafferty. And even last season, we couldn't turn to the strength and depth that we have now. It must be psychologically different if you're Motherwell. And I began to notice some tiring. And I said to my colleague at the game, I began to notice Motherwell tiring, but I'm like, can we take advantage? And there is a difference when you're Motherwell and you've throwing yourself into everything and you're shattered, and all of a sudden Joe Aribo's dancing about with the ball, Yanis Hadji's dancing about with the ball, Cedric Eaton's moving you all over the place and hassling you. That is a difference, I think.
That's a massive difference, David. That it should be no surprise that better players equals better results. But better players off the bench and options off the bench. I think that's the biggest thing for me because, Adam's already said, here's the players that went off on Wednesday night, here's the players that come on. Some of them were a little weird. Incidentally, Stephen Davis did score, but, I take the point. We brought on different players to change the inevitable. And the inevitable was dropped points. But Kamara comes off, Naribo comes on. Defoe comes off, Itten comes on, Kent goes off, I think, from memory for Hadji, I think, or Zunga, I can't remember. But different players coming on to do different things. It wasn't about getting out wide and whipping crosses in. All of a sudden, Aribo and Hadji were playing in the corridors. They were playing in those channels, in between the defenders. And just all of a sudden, we were making runs in behind and we were stretching them and we were getting them out of position. Ultimately, that won us the game. I also just want to took 60 seconds on Cedric Ayton. For on the face of it, it looks like the simplest of finishes. 3 yards out, head it into the net. For Cedric Ayton, however, to be on his toes, to change his footing, to be able to get that clean strike on goal, I thought was terrific. And you go back to, one of you said, he is just naturally an instinctive striker, and that's how he got his goal. So turning around and looking at that bench and realising that we've got like for likes and we've got different options, that's huge for us. But I think you're right, it's huge for the mindset of the opposition.
Adam, we've mentioned this before about fans tend to judge quickly, not just at Rangers, at every club. But, yes, Yanis Hadji, I don't think had his best year. But again, that was another influential cameo, I thought, at the weekend. Joe Aribo, I don't think has been in his best form this season. Injury hit, and I don't think that helped. Cedric Ayton, at times, Wednesday night, didn't have a good game. But the value was there to see.
Yeah, I'm always going to give those players a little bit more slack, given the kind of profile of them. That's the signings we should be making if we're a forward-thinking, progressive club, bringing these players in who are rough diamonds, if you like, unpolished, and getting them and giving them experience, getting a good couple of years out of them and seeing where it goes. So I'm always going to give them a little bit of slack. Hadji, for me, inconsistent. I think he's literally the typical number 10. They're never consistent anyway. However, what he does is he makes things happen. He might put the ball out the park 4 times out of 5, but then he might just slip the ball through and get assists. He's got like 9 assists so far this season. He's hardly played in 2 months. He makes things happen. Aribo gives you something different. I must admit, I'm not as sold on Aribo as a lot of other people are. I like the little tricks, I like the little bits and pieces that he does, but I think for every one of those performances you get one like Wednesday night where he's pretty anonymous. There's a consistency with Hadji in the terms of, well, sooner or later he's going to give you an assist. I don't always get that with Aribo, but I can appreciate that both of them are options for something different, and both of them came to the fore when they came on Saturday. I thought they both give things in different ways. We have players like Kamara and Jack, who will be Mr. Consistent, and they'll give you everything you need. They'll be 7 out of 10 every week. You know exactly what you're going to get. The fact that we've got different types of inconsistent players, and inconsistent doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. I mean, they can pop up in crucial moments and they can do whatever they can to help the team. I think that's key. The one for me there, David, you mentioned when I was going through my dark phase, what we call it, on Saturday afternoon, I'm sitting there thinking, right, what have we got that's different from last year? Because this is exactly the same. What have we got? And I got down to the players and I'm thinking, we've got Helander there. Now, Balogun hasn't really put a foot wrong. Wednesday night, it was a wee bit dodgy. In fact, he put several feet wrong on Wednesday night, if we're being honest. But Helander, Benfica aside, has been a rock. He's been fantastic for us this season. So he come back in, I'm thinking, it's not really a game where Helander's going to make much difference in this one. What else do we have? And it was Roof. I was like, well, we've got Roof. For me, Roof is our cleverest player. He's the most cerebral player that we've got. I got a wee bit of stick in Wednesday night when I tweeted that he's a level above everybody. I think I tweeted that spur of the moment after that wee turn in the St Mirren box where nothing came off. And to me, he's 2 steps ahead in our attack. And sometimes it's one of those things where you can be 2 steps ahead something that you do look stupid, but it's because someone else hasn't ran, if that makes sense.
Ronald de Boer syndrome, that his first sort of season at Rangers, he'd play the pass and there'd be nobody there, and we'd all go, oh, for Christ's sake, what you doing? But it's like, no, but he should have been there. And yeah, you have to adapt to people not being quite on your waiver. Brian Laudrup, Hoggy, remember the first couple of months when the players weren't on his waiver? He was doing these amazing individual things, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't really fitting into the team play. But once he settled, I just think that I banged on about this, but I stick that by it. Sometimes guys arrive in Scotland for Rangers or, unfortunately, occasionally for Celtic, and you think, just you're a guy who's played in a better league than this. And they arrive and they show that. And to me, that's Kemar Roofe.
This is a strange wee league. Genuinely, we live in a strange wee country, David, and have a really odd wee league. I'm not entirely sure there's many leagues around Europe that are going to have teams pitching up with 5-5-0 formations, but it is what it is. A lot of players struggle, and a lot of players struggle to adapt. Kemar Roofe has arrived, and I think he's adapted far, far quicker than most. He's had a period out injured as well, but he's played 17 games and scored 10 goals this season already. And it's the 21st of December. So he's on target to have a 20-goal season. Probably that'll be about half of James Tavernier, I think. But he's adapted, and genuinely, I don't think we've seen anywhere near the best of him yet. But those words that my father said to me are still ringing in my ears, David, that every time I see him, I see the runs of a blue-shirted Maurice Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid comparison. And yeah, I agree. I think he's been excellent. I think he just does look a level above. That's not to say that he doesn't make mistakes or that he doesn't have quiet games or that sometimes he needs to work at being on other players' wavelength. But I just think you can't teach ability. You either have it or you don't, and he most certainly does. Sometimes, Hoggy, as Wailing Hippie Nightmare Johnny Mitchell sang in the 70s, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Been a lot of criticism of Alfredo Morelos. People, saying he's not scoring enough goals. I'm probably guilty of that myself. But last couple of games, have we maybe seen? Yeah, but he does occupy defenders and he does cause a fair bit of chaos that other people can take advantage of.
Alfie this season. So first and foremost, David, Alfie over the past 46 weeks has not been on form. Full stop. Needs a goal, needs a wee injection of confidence, because you've seen him troop off the park, and Sky have laboured the point about how huffy he looks. All that. But he needs a wee confidence injection. Of course he does. He's been instructed, I have to believe, to come deeper, to play outside the box, to accommodate everyone else and everyone else's runs. And if he's coming deep, he's dragging players with him. We've seen it all season. How often is Tav getting in the box to, score at the back post from a Barisic cross, etc., and Morelos is outside the box? Fairly often. So I think the last two games have missed him, because the last two games have been against very robust sides that needed moved about. And Alfredo Morelos has been doing that. I think he's got a really rough ride because of it. I'll say it again, I think his form over the past 6 weeks has been pretty poor. But I think he's had a really rough ride because of the numbers, David, because of the stats. Previously, he was our main threat, and we bemoaned that we weren't scoring right across the team. Now we're scoring right across the team, and we're bemoaning that Alfredo Morelos isn't scoring a ton of goals. Logic would dictate that you're not going to get both, especially if you're asking him to play outside the box half the time. So he does need a wee confidence injection, absolutely, but I'd have him back in the side for St Johnstone.
Adam?
Yeah, the last two games have certainly given me food for thought. I think I'm in the camp, or I think I was in the camp, where I don't think the link-up play is so much different to last season. He is a little bit deeper, and it's possibly because we've got Roofe there as well, and he's getting ahead. We've got Arfield running further that we probably didn't have last season. I don't think he's so much deeper. I also don't think his link-up play is fantastic. I think he can be quite clumsy with it sometimes. However, the other points that Hoggy made there around it are really valid. who do you want playing against a team like Motherwell, the way that they set up out of Morelos, Itten and Defoe? It's 100% Morelos. I think if Itten had started that game on Saturday, he would have been nearly as conspicuous as Defoe was. I don't think that's the right type of game for him. I think we need Morelos there, dropping deep, dragging defenders with him more. It's more the threat of Morelos, I think, sometimes, rather than what he's actually contributing. And I don't mean that to sound like a disservice to him.
No, I get it. It's every team has a player like Man United don't take Bruno Fernandes off if he's having a quiet game because the other team have to leave 2 men on him. Yep. Because they know he can burst into life, and Alfie brings that to us. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So there's that side of it there, which we're agreed he hasn't been as good in the last 6 weeks. However, there's that. Well, he's there, and what if on a defender's side, and then also the physicality of him, I think, is unrivaled certainly in anybody else that we've got, and probably all of Scotland as far as a centre forward. That type of physicality that he's got. So there's sides of it there. I think he'll start on Wednesday night. So we'll see.
Got a good record against Johnson.
Absolutely. I think I've been at pretty much every game that he scored up there. So hopefully that's not a bad omen. But we'll see how it goes. But I've got a Morelos pod coming out on the Patreon site next week probably. David, just looking at him this season in terms of whether there's much change in his link-up play, all that sort of stuff from last season. Obviously the goals have dried up considerably, but we're going to do a wee bit of a 18-month, if you like, analysis on him just to see what he is doing differently from a tactical point of view. So that will be out next week. So I'm not sure. Definitely the last 2 games have given me food for thought, given how kind of ineffective the starting centre forward has been in both of those games.
Ian, psychology in a title race is huge. Had Rangers followed up a cup defeat with another disappointing result, then people would have been saying a lot of things, but more importantly would have given a fillip to our title rivals. Instead, we're 16 points clear. Now, yes, they have 3 games in hand. That is absolutely correct. But you need to win those games in hand, and given the way they've been playing, that's not guaranteed. I would rather have the points on the board at all times. But secondly, how many times have we been sitting watching one of their games, or not watching rather, studiously avoiding, but you hear, they're a goal down. And then you're sitting there going, it gets closer and closer and closer, and you're sitting there going, hold. They equalise, and you go, well, there's only 5 minutes left, just a draw is even as good. And then they inevitably go on and win. We did that to them at the weekend, and that's different. And that is the kind of thing that indicates different level of challenge.
Yeah, and I'm going to guess that's not your stomach, David. I'm going to guess that's Nala in the background snoring.
Sorry, is it that loud?
Yeah, it was.
My apologies then to all the listeners. I have a little snory dog in the background. I shall go and rouse her.
Indeed. So, just we've all been through it. We've absolutely all been through it, David. That you're willing Celtic to drop points. They almost do, and you snatch it away, or they snatch it away. That happened on Saturday, and I think that just that psychology is huge, really, really huge. Because if I take you through my journey on Saturday, it's probably the same as you guys. That after 65 minutes, and you're thinking it's just no coming, all you can see in your head is, and we're only going to be 4 points ahead. Already you've projected they're going to win their 3 games in hand. Right through to, and fine well, Celtic fans will have been sitting there watching going, great, it's going to be back to 4. We win the game, I can guarantee you the absolute same Celtic fans will now be thinking, shit, it's 16 points. It's gone from 4 to 16 in the space of 25 minutes. That psychology is massive. And, we've had 2 games there where we've not been sparkling. Far from it. We've lost one, we've scraped by the other. We need to now go and put the foot back on the throat on Wednesday night.
Yeah, 100%. Right, that will do us, apart from your opportunity to win a signed photograph of Ryan Jack celebrating after scoring the winning goal against Celtic in December 2018. Thanks to our friends at 5 Stars. Now, 5 Stars, you may know, is Chris Boyd's company. It's an events partner of Rangers, and they very kindly gave us the photograph to do. All you need to do is follow them on their social media. That's at 5 Stars, or at you go into Twitter and you'll find at 5 Stars Limited on Twitter, and just search for them on Facebook. Or if you don't use social media, which I know a lot of you don't, you simply need to send them an email. Nice and easy, nice and straightforward. All you have to do is email them at 5 Stars, and it's letters, FIVE Stars Limited at outlook.com. So 5 Stars Limited at outlook.com, and just say, hi, I'm entering this competition. But you can follow them on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter as well, and that will be you entered, and the winner will win this signed photograph of Ryan Jack. So thank you to our friends at 5 Stars for enabling us to do that. My thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and of course my thanks to our two guests. First of all, the wonderful Adam Thornton.
Cheers, David.
And the fabulous Mr. Ian Hogg.
David, thanks for having me on. I hope your team wins on Wednesday night. And this is the last Monday flagship before Christmas, so Merry Christmas, everyone. Absolutely. Merry Christmas to every bear. I hope that the team send you into Christmas happy, and I hope that they make you happy on Boxing Day as well. Full coverage, of course, over on our Patreon site, patreon.com/heart and hand. Apologies for my little dog in the background snoring if it put you off, but any of you who've been around Heart and Hand for these 10 years will know that dogs always play an important part and always will. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.